Welcome back. Welcome in. Welcome back. Welcome to In Studio. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. This is the early game. The day before, I presume a lot of people may have a little bit of time off.
Yeah.
I presume a lot of people. And again, depends on your job.
Hold on. I guess I should ask the question. Is it better for a holiday to be on a Friday or Monday? Would you rather have the long weekend start earlier or go longer?
I like your thought process here. I like to get started on Friday.
Okay.
I like the holiday to be on a Friday because it leads into the rest. You still have the rest of the weekend to still do whatever you need to do. And then by Sunday, you've done everything you needed to do. You're good. I think when you have a day off or something along those lines on Monday, the rest of the week is still Monday. It's still Monday.
It's still Monday, and you kind of go through the day with the Sunday scaries a little bit.
Exactly. Even though you may not be going to anything, you still feel like that.
Like, all right, I know I'm off today, but I got work tomorrow. Whereas, like, the 4th being on a Friday, can enjoy the entire day. Do whatever you want to do. Go to whatever event. Go to this. Go to that. Fireworks. And like, hey, tomorrow's Saturday. I don't got to worry about going to bed early. I don't got to worry about getting my lunch ready for tomorrow. Like, I think you can enjoy the holiday even more when it's on a Friday.
Right, and even if depending on your,
I'm like, wow, this is practically like a whole week off.
Now you're cooking, yeah. So you get a little bit more time, and I will get into this because Tyler, I believe my take that got me to ascend within this company. I have one signature take, and it's about the 4th of July.
Yes,
and you know how Skip Bayless has LeBron.
Yes,
maybe Stephen A. Smith has the, staying off the weed.
Yes, your legacy arguments.
I have one. I think I have a singular legacy argument that has gotten me to this spot that we're in, and we will get to that because it's involving the 4th of July, is involving food, and it's something I feel very, very firmly about. But besides all that, Tyler, we have entered into a brand new world.
Now, on the early game, let's kick off the show with the MITs, the most important things on the game.
We got a grab bag of things to talk about today. A couple of different issues. There's some recruiting things we'll get into a little bit later. But most importantly, Tyler, we are in a brand new world of college athletics.
Yes, we are.
The Rev Share era has officially begun yesterday. Kind of, sort of.
Amateurism is officially dead.
Right. There's a couple of things we don't have to do anymore. You don't really have to refer to anybody as student athletes.
No.
You don't have to do that anymore. Yes, there are athletes who are attending school, we assume, in a lot of cases, but we don't have to do with that facade that was created by the NCAA to avoid legalities years ago. We don't have to do that. We're not doing amateurism as a whole anymore. These are, maybe if you want to refer to them as sub-professional, even though they are getting paid to play their sports.
What's wrong with just calling it professional sports?
Minor league?
Maybe.
In some cases.
I mean, there are multi-billion-dollar television deals with these main conferences. Again, you're talking about the high-end talent getting paid millions and millions of dollars. It sounds like pro sports to me.
You're right. We're talking about pro sports. And so there's a couple of things that we don't have to deal with. Now, that may turn some people off.
Sure.
That may take away from what some of the charm that people enjoyed about the game, and that's fine. I definitely understand that because we are looking at a different product. We're looking at something different. But it is a unique era that we have moved into. And so the Rev Share era is distinctly different. We'll talk about it. We're going to try and have this conversation without getting too dorky about it because there's a lot of numbers and caps and legalities and appeals, Supreme Courts, lawyers, all this type of stuff that I don't love getting into.
I don't know if you follow Ross Dellinger or not on Twitter, of course, for Yahoo Sports, and he covers all this stuff better than anybody, I feel like. I don't think he's tweeted about a single thing actually on the field football related since the season ended.
Yeah.
Because it's all been about this. It's been the legalities, NIL, and again, he covers like realignment, he covers the college football playoff and all that kind of stuff. Like, again, so much of this is like tied up in, again, how this is going to lead to court stuff that we forget that, like, oh, this all ends up being about what happens on the field too.
Right. It's going to directly affect what's on the field, and we'll talk about that more. But if you are just tuning in at 6 o'clock, you don't listen to the rest of the show, here it is. Rev Share has started. We've
Yep.
talked about it. What does Rev Share mean? Rev Share means that the payments are now coming directly from the schools.
Yes.
When the players receive payment, as in check, direct deposit, however this works, it will say their institution on it. And it will not say a third party.
Yes.
It will not say a collective. It will not say Mr. Landscape Man, local landscape guy. It won't say that. It'll directly say you are being paid, compensated by your institution.
But they're still not employees of the institution, and that's kind of where the gray area is.
This is where the gray area is going. This is where the gray area is coming in. And it's very important that the lawyers have lawyered, and they're using these terms very specifically, right?
Yes.
You won't hear the term salary cap. You won't hear any specific references to them being employees.
Mm-hmm.
You will hear the term Rev Share, as in a share of the revenue that is coming in, and that is where the payment is coming from. So the payments will be coming directly from the school's money that they bring in. What are the schools' money? How do the schools bring in money? Media rights, which are huge. Ticket sales. Another one, which I'm not sure if anybody's talked about this. We didn't talk about this here. Student fees,
Which are going up.
For everything, but
Yep.
there's expressed athletic student fees that South Carolina has specifically joined. Other schools around the country have done it, but there are specific athletic fees that have been induced. So the money that the athletes will be paid will come directly from the institution. And this is a sea change from the beginning of the NIL era, which was so long ago, Tyler.
4 years.
A whole 4 years ago,
Yeah.
where that money was coming from third parties.
Yeah, and again, the original idea with NIL was that, hey, Preston Thorne is the quarterback at South Carolina. I own a local car dealership. I want to use him for my commercials. I'm going to pay him $10,000 to cut some commercials for me because I think that'll help my business out. And in the beginning, that's kind of what it was. You did see some kind of like brand deals and things like that some of the, more well-known, college football players and college athletes were doing. And then somebody was like, hey, wait a minute. If we start a collective and we just start pooling money together, we can just start paying these kids to come to our school and turn it into pay for play. And that's ending up what everybody obviously did, which kind of got us into this mess that ended up leading to the changes that have made revenue share. Though, and we'll get into this, that's not going to solve all the problems.
Right, and we'll get into this next segment about the problems that are still very much ahead. The clearest line that I heard was, this is a starting point, not a finish line.
Yeah, starting point for new problems.
This is not the end of the issues, but there will be more things that will come about from this. And so, yes, we have entered into a brand new era. In a lot of ways, when you hear that phrase, pay for play, what you don't hear is, this is where I make my distinction between pro sports, because they are being paid to play. As of yet, they have not been paid to perform.
Right.
And that's where the distinction might come in.
Yes, up to this point, through traditional NIL, you're not paid based on your stats, based on what you accomplished during the season, because that would technically be pay for what you were doing on the field, which, again, technically speaking, they weren't allowed to do. This opens up a different door, though.
Yes, and this is where you lead into the professionalization of college sports.
I hadn't really even thought about that now your performance really does matter. So it's not like, you can have a stinky year, well, you can lose all your money.
Right, and this is as dorky as we'll get on the court case. The premise of the settlement was that the players who participated in TV broadcast, whether it was the NCAA, SEC, CBS, bowl games, whatever, they were essentially having their name, image, and likeness used during those broadcasts.
Yes, because that's why people watch, was because of them.
Right. So it wasn't, you wouldn't watch a broadcast of the University of South Carolina and they wouldn't say, quarterback number 16 throws the ball.
Right.
They would say Lenore Sellers, which, by the way, that is his name.
Yes.
That is his image, and that is his likeness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's where the idea of they were being paid for their name, image, and likeness because they were used on the broadcast and they weren't being compensated for that. Now that has been taken off the table and we've moved into this more professional idea of what the sports are. Now we can get into the concept of you being paid for performance. You play well, you can get paid more money, and ideally. So you see things like maybe incentives being built into contracts, maybe de-incentives being built into contracts, where like the NFL, where if you don't play, you don't perform, you might have been promised this amount of money for this year, you don't hit certain incentives, we can retract that. Those are all on the table now where it wasn't before. So, yes, there's a lot of information on that, but the whole thing about this is we have entered into that world here, and we'll talk about how athletic departments have been preparing for this. So, we get Rev Share out the way, but also, even though we're talking about Rev Share, Tyler, there's still recruiting going on.
And it might be more important than it has been the past couple of years.
Recruiting is still happening.
Yep.
So if you think that was going away, if you think some of the things that you really enjoyed about college sports, it feels like maybe recruiting's heating back up, and especially high school recruiting, as we'll talk about South Carolina and their recruiting. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Rev Share. We'll talk about the issues that we still see ahead, and also we'll come back, recruiting still a thing, and South Carolina's on the losing end of 2 specific defensive line targets. We'll get into that. This is Preston On. This is Tyler Head. This is Jen Jensen. This is the early game.
You know, they say perfection is a journey. Well, our journey led us to Carolina Stone Craftsman just outside Columbia in Chapin. We did have some work that we were having done within the house and had some cabinets replaced, needed countertops. Weren't really sure what we wanted in those bathrooms. So we went to Carolina Stone Craftsman, went to their incredible showroom, and they educated us as to what might be best, what might be most durable. And we're thrilled with the results, from the customer idea to the fabrication to the installation. Every step of the process they really care about and want to make sure that you are satisfied. They also have an outdoor showroom, a lot of hardscape things they can do, outdoor kitchens and the such, and can't wait to tell you more about that. But right now, if you're looking for countertops for your kitchen or bath, I do encourage you to reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman and tell them Jen Jensen sent you. They're family owned and operated. Carolina Stone Craftsman, just beyond Columbia in Chapin, and I assure you, beyond your expectations. Visit carolinacraftsman.com. And for your Wednesday morning, we do have one accident to make you aware of. I-26 eastbound just after exit 119. Again, left 2 lanes are blocked, so stay right. I-26 eastbound just after exit 119. And then forecast high of about 88. Heat index will be about 94. Some afternoon storms could be popping up. Tomorrow, some clouds, 92. Everything clears out for Friday and July 4th activities. Looking for a high of 94, sunny and 93 on Saturday. So good weekend ahead. 75 right now, kind of muggy out there. 107.5 The Game.
Welcome into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. A whole new world. College athletics has entered into a whole new world. And quite frankly, Tyler, this is where myself as a former athlete, this is where I wanted to see college athletics for a long time. I was personally of the belief that we should have skipped straight through the NIL era because I was not an advocate of other people paying the athletes playing for these institutions.
Because that still doesn't give the guys the money that you're generating in the billions for these respective institutions and conferences.
Well, there was 2 sides to that. Yes, it was that idea that you weren't being able to participate in the newfound gains that college football has had over the past 25 years, which it has expanded tremendously.
Yep.
There was 2 parts of that. But then me on the consumer side now, not as an athlete, I could not justify the idea that a third party was essentially that these institutions who were making all of these money were essentially passing the hat around to everybody else who was already paying for things.
We've seen so many of the coaches, and Nick Saban's talked about it, having to go to these events and be like, hey guys, open up that pocketbook. We need coach, you make how much money? Why can't you just give some of that to your players?
Yeah, it was a ridiculous ask from the beginning. That the idea that these collectives would come around and everybody, the reason why it happened because everybody wants to compete.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be last. And so everybody did it looking around like, are we really doing this?
Yeah, because everybody else is.
Everybody else is doing it, so we have to do it. But I was just never in favor of the idea of we're going to get these guys to pay for what these guys are doing.
When you were an athlete yourself back in the early 2000s, and look, the topic of players being compensated has always been around. I remember it my entire life, but obviously didn't take on serious discussion until the past, 10 years or so. When you were a player, when did it kind of set into you hey, wait a minute, should I be getting something for this? Was that a conversation in the locker room? How'd that go down?
That's a great question. This, obviously we're in drastically different times. So when we were playing, we were literally, you had your scholarship, room and board, you had your food paid for, which was all a great credit.
Sure.
Because college educations are expensive. So I would never get on here and say, well, we didn't get anything, because that's not true.
Yeah.
You got an opportunity to get a college education. I was able to finish school without having student loan debt, which is a tremendous accomplishment, blessing, because a lot of people don't have this. So it wasn't saying that. But when you looked around in the stadiums, you looked around, especially at that time, and I wasn't this fortunate, but when you looked around and you saw players' jerseys being worn, say, a 21 for Ryan Brewer or a 22 for Derek Watson, you see 122s walking in the building, and you see Derek Watson who, is quite literally trying to, maybe borrow toilet paper because we're broke. That's tough thing to justify.
But the names weren't on the back of the jersey, Preston. We don't know who those guys were. It could have been anyone.
Well, let's just say this. They weren't walking into the stadium wearing number 94s. It was only one person. That was my mother wearing a 94 T-shirt, not even a jersey, right?
She had to make that herself, right?
Yeah. So they weren't doing that.
I would have worn a 94 for you.
I appreciate it. But the fan club was not huge.
In fact, I think we can actually go make a Preston Thorne jersey now at the bookstore.
We might need to be able to do that.
Great.
Yeah, so there was very specific people where jerseys were being worn.
Yeah.
And they tried to fix that. And so at the time, we would be able to get you can get an SEC check at the time,
Okay.
which was, you ready for this?
Yeah.
$250 per semester.
Okay.
That was your SEC check, which everybody was available for. And then players who were financially eligible could also get your Pell Grant,
All right.
which, guess what? Every other college student can get a Pell Grant if you're financially if you're available for it. So those were essentially the two funding sources that athletes had.
So that SEC check would equate to about $40 a month during the season.
Yeah.
Wow.
And on top of that, and this is not a grievance session, I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
On top of that, we were prohibited by law that you could not work.
Right.
Right, you could not work in season.
Yeah,
And
see,
then
that's the harder part of all of that.
we could not work in season, and then postseason, your opportunities were extremely, extremely limited.
Sure, because who's going to hire you to do a job where, again, you're only available for certain hours during the week, and for half the year, you're like, yeah, I can't do anything.
Yeah, and so, again, this is not a grievance because I do think at the time in 2000, though the numbers still skewed and there probably should have been more direct paid into there, it was a different time. But now the money is totally different.
Yeah.
When you started seeing coaches, remember during that time period, and this was Lou Holtz being Lou Holtz, he was, I'm embarrassed to be getting paid $1 million.
Sure, buddy.
Obviously he wasn't embarrassed, but it was like, oh my God, $1 million for a coach.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, is that even a starting quarterback now?
No.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you're a good starting quarterback, no.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm curious, did Lou Holtz do like a pool party at the house? Did he do any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, how much of that was reciprocated on y'all?
Not much.
Because you see, Muschamp had the kids out at the island or the whatever peninsula that he was on, and you see Beamer doing these parties at the house and all these things, and I just kind of got to thinking, Lou Holtz.
Hey, did you ever go to his house?
I think one time.
Okay.
Maybe. Maybe once. Maybe once.
Wow.
That was
Played for him for how many years?
5.
You're right.
5.
See, things are a little different.
Yes. It was a different time. And again, not grievance, it's just a different time. So where we are with this Rev Share era is that it is a revenue sharing proposition where the institutions will be paying athletes directly out of their coffers.
Yes.
Meaning directly out of their coffers. It comes from media rights, it comes from ticket sales, it comes from fees, which we may get into a little bit later. And so I've always been more in favor of this particular payment structure than the NIL structure. I thought the NIL structure was egregious, honestly, the idea that you would ask somebody else to pay for these athletes. I'm glad we have moved past that. Now we actually can get back to maybe what the NIL purpose was.
Yes.
So it's building on top of your Rev Share payment, because we're not calling it salaries because they're not employees, Tyler.
Right.
On top of your Rev Share payment, now you are also able to receive NIL opportunities.
Well, and I think, and we'll get into the high school recruiting specifics here in a minute, but I think that's why you're seeing such a bigger deal being made about high school recruiting once again, because now everybody's getting paid. Now it's like, okay, we don't have to pay this, left tackle that's never played a snap for us $500,000 to come here. He's already going to get X amount of dollars based on the revenue share. And once he gets here, we have the opportunity to pay him more, but it's not like, okay, you got to come to us, so let's throw $500,000 at you.
So the curious thing that happened, so yesterday was July 1st.
Yes.
Right?
Officially went into
the
effect.
official start. Curious thing happened on June 30th. On June 30th, the day before July 1st, before the new rules were enforced, curiously, the company Open Doors, which is the company who basically has been the leader in processing NIL payments for the nation, they had the largest day ever.
Weird how that works.
On June 30th, Open Doors processed the highest number of deals and the most money that they've processed because all of the schools were trying to get in before the door closed, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these schools front-loaded some of these deals. They were able to put the money ahead of time before the door closed. And so we're still in this cat and mouse game.
It's going to take a little while for all of the original NIL athletes and these deals to kind of filter out before we get this true reset of, okay, now everybody under this umbrella is in the new revenue sharing era.
Yeah, it's a boom and bust market.
Yeah.
These guys who just came along at this time period, blessings. You
Yeah.
you just hit the market when it was hot.
Sure.
You were able to make more money than what's essentially probably is going to end up happening, and this
Sure.
is where the problem is going to come in because it's going to be difficult to tell somebody, oh, you made $2 million last year. Well, we're
Yeah.
not doing that anymore, and you're going to make 500,000.
It's kind of like the COVID year of eligibility, where
Yes.
like even up to this point, we're still dealing with guys that you think would have been done with football or college athletics by now, still being able to use that COVID year of eligibility because it takes a while to filter all of them out and get to the okay, now everybody from the COVID era is gone. Same thing here, where you're going to have so many of these deals like Bryce Underwood signed a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal with Michigan. That's going to continue even in revenue sharing. That he's guaranteed that money because of the deal that he signed prior to revenue sharing going into effect. So yeah, some of the higher end athletes are still going to have their original NIL deals for years from now, even though Rev Share is a thing.
Right, and it will filter out, but essentially on the books for right now, you'll have some of those previous deals. And again, this is a brand new era. Things will change, but for me personally, I am more in favor of institutions paying the athletes as opposed to you, me, or whoever from the from whatever collective that you were talking about. And so that's a new era. We'll continue to discuss it. Don't want to get very deep into the numbers of the weeds, but I think it is important that we understand where we are with that. That's the new stuff. Let's get back to some old school college football. Cruton. Georgia got us again. We'll talk about it. This is the early game. Hey, this is Preston Thorne from Midlands Landscaping and Lawns, and proud owner Paul Romenstein is here to remind you all that you don't have to tolerate fire ants. For over 30 years, Midlands Landscaping and Lawns has been helping families enjoy their yards without worrying about those little pests. Guess what? Yes, it's fire ant season. I know it's the time of the year where you want to be outside, especially with the 4th of July coming out, and you have mounds popping up all over your lawn. Well, you can get rid of them, and you can call the folks at Midlands Landscaping and Lawns. Their treatment program is fast, effective, and is safe for your family and pets. And best of all, it's guaranteed to keep the fire ants away for a full year. So don't wait until someone gets bit. Let's take care of those fire ants before they take over. Midlands Landscaping and Lawns is your local, trusted professionals. Don't DIY this. Give us a call at 803-356-8080. That's 803-356-8080.
Still working that earlier tie-up on I-26 eastbound just after exit 119. You're going to want to stay right because the two left lanes are currently blocked. Your forecast for today, 88 will be our high, heat index about 94, but we could see some afternoon and evening thunderstorms coming in. Tomorrow, 92 with some clouds. Then that all clears out for July 4th, mostly sunny, 94. Then on Saturday, sunny and 93, 90 for your Sunday. So it should be a great July 4th weekend weather-wise, and we look forward to that. Currently, a little bit muggy out there, 75 and 107.5 The Game.
All right, let's get back to the fundamentals of college sports. Recruiting. It's the lifeblood of the sport. Despite what we talk about, despite what we think, transfer portal, NIL payments, recruiting is still the thing that moves this machine forward.
Absolutely.
Now, yesterday, today's Wednesday, Monday and Tuesday, Bill and I spent a considerable amount of time talking about PJ Dean. Who was on Monday, we thought was a pretty strong lean towards South Carolina. He's a defensive tackle.
Got a Fong bomb on it.
Got a Fong bomb on it. 6th best in the nation, 66th nationally. It was going to be a thing. Pretty strong lean on Monday, so we thought. Tuesday, we come to find out, Monday afternoon. That's the thing we're doing a morning show, is sometimes we do things before the things happen.
Yep.
And so you can go back and listen to the show while we're pontificating about what's going to happen, and then it does not happen that way.
Yep.
So sometimes we are wrong. So that didn't happen. Monday he makes his commitment to Georgia, which I want to ask you about that here in a minute.
Sure.
Makes his commitment to Georgia, and that's a significant loss for South Carolina in the defensive line because that is a position that they need to replenish.
Yep.
We'll get back to that. Yesterday, South Carolina loses another defensive line battle in recruiting. They lose defensive end. I think he's an end. I'm not sure if he's an edge, Tyler.
What's the difference these days? Where did edge come from?
These are the questions I like to explore.
That just kind of like
I would say this.
Started calling them edges.
I think edges get paid more money than defensive ends.
Okay.
Right. So I think that's where. So if whatever gets paid the most money, that's what you need to call me.
Sure.
So I want to be called the edge. So Julian Walker, edge, local, from Dutch Fork, 6'6", 240, number 20 edge in the nation, chooses Michigan over South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a double-edged sword. Not only is he a local product, he's from Dutch Fork, but his father is an assistant strength coach on South Carolina's staff.
Right.
That's the background of this story. They lose another defense line. So they took two recruiting L's within a week.
Sure.
Now this happens, but the crux of Bill and I's argument yesterday was that when South Carolina wants to make the jump from going from good to great, these are battles that they have to win against some of these bigger schools.
Yeah, and it's not that they haven't won some of them. And Chris wrote an article yesterday on Gamecock Central, essentially saying, hey, the sky's not necessarily falling when it comes to recruiting. He did point out that there's a good handful of recruits they've gotten here recently, that they have won significant battles against Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, teams like that. So they are winning some of these, but I guess it seems like, especially when maybe as high profile as Dean was, that garnered so much attention, it seems like some of the bigger ones, they still haven't won a lot of those up to this point. Now, again, that's not the case every single time. Again, you flipped Nick Harbor from it seemed like a sure thing with Oregon to committing to you a couple years ago on National Signing Day, no less. So it's not impossible, but it does sting when you lose those kind of things.
Yeah, you want to be able to win. You want to be able to win those events. Now, reading what I read with Julian. Now, Julian first came on my radar, unfortunately, unfortunately, when I watched Dutch Fork play Somerville in the state championship last year, you did high school football for a long time, right?
I did. Yeah.
There's always somebody who looks different.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you my Zach Pickens story?
Go.
So, and I did high school football in Georgia for Clark Central, which is right down the street from UGA. And one year, this would have been 2018, they played a preseason game against TL Hanna.
Yes.
And again, especially in preseason, it's hard to get a lot of information about teams. So we got what we could. But we heard, hey, there's a South Carolina commit on this TL Hanna team by the name of Zach Pickens. It was very easy to pick out who Zach Pickens was. In that game, he had a forced fumble, also got a safety, and I think also scored a touchdown.
Was he playing running back that
game?
No,
all defense.
Okay.
Just all this came on defense. And it was like, yeah, I can see why that guy's playing in the SEC.
That's him.
Yeah.
I don't need the program. I don't need a picture.
Again, if you guys see anybody in the stands, which one of these guys is playing at the next level? That guy.
Yeah, that's how it felt with Julian. It was he was playing, and then all of a sudden the third quarter came around, and it was like, oh, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's this dude? And so we learned about him. Thing is, he's at Dutch Fork, obviously a great program. And what was really interesting is to read his father's comments, because his father's like, hey, yeah, I work for the University of South Carolina. That's cool.
Sure.
But this is my son's life. This is not my life.
Yeah.
I can't make this decision for him. I won't be working. I may or may not be working here forever. So it's not as if I can make this decision for him.
Some guys don't want to go to the team that their dad's on.
Novel point. Like, maybe I don't want to be around dear old dad all the time.
No, because dad's going to be, in 99% of the cases, dad's going to be harder on you than anybody else.
Yeah, and also, maybe dad doesn't want that situation, because now, like, I want to keep my
I want to enjoy watching my child play.
I want to enjoy my son.
Yeah.
And so I could so a lot of people were saying, like, oh, man, how could we lose that? And I was like, I don't think that's as big a thing. And then also he was saying, you know, when he went up to Michigan, and I am an alum of the University of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I love my university. Not Michigan. It's not.
Yeah.
When you're thinking academically, all of those types of things, that the pedigree that a Michigan degree holds, I get it. I understand that.
Let's be honest here. They can show you a national championship trophy from 18 months ago.
Right. So you can have all of those. You can have all of those conversations for him. So they lose out. They lose out on him. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, with recruiting, the story's still yet to be told. Things can happen. It's only a verbal commitment. Didn't sign, but they lost out on those two things. And the reason why that's important, because South Carolina needs to replenish the coffers in the DL room.
Yeah, that was obviously something that we knew, even going back to last season, like, hey, you're going to lose a lot of the depth that you have in this room, and pretty much all those guys getting opportunities at the next level. But, yeah, you have to really reset there. And, again, a guy like P.J. Dean would have obviously been a big addition to it, which is, obviously a bummer to miss out on. But, hey, still plenty of time. Again, you still got 5-6 months until National Signing Day comes along. And, again, they're still in the mix for a lot of different guys. And we'll see. This is where you really got to buckle down and make things happen over these next couple of months to shore up what is already a very solid class.
I'll tell you, I guess the thing from my perspective is that even though you may have lost out on these two recruits, there's more players. We get that, but I'm confident in Trevarian Robinson being a coach that, getting quality recruits, he will be able to coach and develop those recruits. So they'll get significant amount. They'll get significant guys. They may not have been the guys on the top of their recruiting board, and that's fine. They will get some other players in it. But more importantly for me, especially at South Carolina, where you may not win all of these battles, that's why developing and the coaching staff is so important to me. And I think they have the coaching staff in place for that.
I kind of think about recruiting like batting average in baseball. It's like, yeah, we'd all love to go up there and get a hit every single time, but if you're batting 300, you're doing pretty good. You get in the Hall of Fame for batting 300 in Major League Baseball. Recruiting's kind of the same way. You're not going to win all of them, but if you win a decent amount of them, as long as it's high-level talent, you're going to be okay.
Right, and you want to win. Let's be clear. We want to win. They have to win some of these battles. The more they win games, though, the more these battles they will win.
Yeah, when you have more cachet and more things that are relevant to whatever that crop of young student athletes, and there, when again using the word student athletes, the next young crop of athletes can look at and say, yeah, I want to be a part of that, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's the huge point. So we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more recruiting. But next, Tyler, it's why I'm here. It's here to deliver my legacy take, my most impassioned belief. I truly believe this. We'll talk about why the 4th of July is severely underrated, and I'm not talking about fireworks. This is the early game. Fourth of July is the best eating holiday on the calendar. It's the Preston Thorne take. It's what's gotten me to this high point in my media career, Tyler.
You're going to die on that hill.
This is the hill that I'm living on. This is the hill that I am dying on. This is the one that when you see my tombstone and they talk about the co-host of the early game and say he thought that the 4th of July was America's best eating holiday, and I will stand on that, Tyler.
I see where you're coming from. I guess I've never given it that deep of thought, but you make a very solid point.
803-404-6100. Start, bench, cut. This is me. These are my three. These are the three that are in consideration. You have the 4th of July, Super Bowl Sunday, and Thanksgiving. Now, I may or may not have just given you my order. May or may not have. 4th of July, Super Bowl Sunday, Thanksgiving. America's eating holidays.
Don't you tell me you're full, just eat it. Eat it.
There you go.
This is where I am. The 4th of July is the best eating holiday for various reasons, from the menu to the setting to the time of year. All of it leads into why I believe the 4th of July is the best eating holiday. Next Super Bowl, next Thanksgiving. Now, Thanksgiving gets all the press. Everybody loves it. I love it too.
Sure. It's great.
But, see, Jen, that's how I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm on the live stream. If nobody's watching the live stream, I'm kind of shaking my head like, I don't know.
The menu on the 4th of July is the way I like to eat.
Yeah, okay.
It's my type of eating. I love hot dogs. I love hamburgers. I love good old, like, America type eating.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I get on 4th of July.
It's very, very simple.
Yes.
Right? It's nothing elaborate. Again, Thanksgiving, you're probably spending the entire day before cooking and prepping, and it's obviously very good food, but 4th of July is like, hey, let's throw some hot dogs on the grill.
Paper
potato
plates.
chips,
We're not
baked
doing the
beans.
fancy spread, not having to make sure everything's right.
Yeah, maybe your aunt's making her special potato salad, but it's nothing that's like crazy elaborate. It's very simple. We're having a good time. We're hanging out. We're eating some good food.
Grazing.
And that's what my thing is. If you've noticed the common thing, I like grazing. That's my style of eating. I'm a grazer.
Me too.
So I can go get, maybe I'll get a hot dog here with some chips.
Sure.
And next time, maybe I'll have one or two beverages, and then I'll come back around for a hamburger with some baked beans.
Yeah.
And then, and you just sort of move through the day.
Yeah, because like with Thanksgiving, some people love to just like load the plate, and I can't do that. And to me, then you've kind of had everything and you're done. You don't get to continue to taste things other than with leftovers. But
I will say one thing that Thanksgiving does have going for it, and this isn't food related, it does coincide with football, though, where you do have a sport that you're typically taking in while eating. 4th of July, like, you can turn on a baseball game, but like it's not as tied in
That is true.
to what you're doing with the food.
That's why I present the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
That's
Good
why
point.
that's why I present the Super Bowl as my second best eating holiday, because that is a good point. There's really not a lot of. I mean, yes, I am into Wimbledon, but Wimbledon is not necessarily a food eating event. You might have the strawberries and cream, but
Sure.
it's not the same.
And every time we talk about that, I'm like, I need to try that strawberries and cream. Like, what is that? Is it strawberries and milk, or is it actually like a whipped cream?
I've had the strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper, so if it's anything like that, it's pretty good.
I'm sure that's what
I would love to see Tyler at center court pop open a Dr. Pepper.
I mean,
What?
This,
Same thing.
This is what we was talking about, right?
I'm fancy. You can put a pinky out while you're
There
drinking
you go.
it.
I'll pour it into like a wine glass.
Put
How
it
about
into,
that?
There you go.
put it into
All
a
kinds
little
of
glass.
fancy.
803-404-6100. Start, bench, cut.
Oh, man.
4th of July, Super Bowl, Thanksgiving. What you got?
Nameless texter, Thanksgiving start, bench 4th of July, and drop the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Walt, also going to go Thanksgiving, start Super Bowl, or start Thanksgiving, bench Super Bowl, cut 4th of July. I love the 4th, Preston, but come on.
This is Walt. I understand.
Joe's going to agree with you. Start 4th of July, bench the Super Bowl, cut Thanksgiving.
Joe, I appreciate it. See, this is what I'm saying. This is the hill. This is the take that I'm going to be famous for. He's going to be the 4th of July food guy.
Nameless texter, Thanksgiving food is so heavy you can only eat 1 to 2 plates. 4th of July, you can have 3 hot dogs, slaw, mac and cheese, barbecue, multiple plates. Super Bowl, you can eat a lot of snacks. The volume of food increases.
I'm a volume shooter, a volume guy, right? So I go for the volume. Let's go.
I will say Thanksgiving does open the door for some special foods that you don't always get.
true.
Like you can have a hot dog anytime. You can have potato salad anytime. Like my family has a dressing recipe that I get once a year. So like that becomes like an event for me of like I only get this thing that I love a lot at this one event.
I get it, and that's a lot of the appeal at that. And let me not be clear, I love Thanksgiving. I just love 4th of July more.
Yeah.
I just enjoy the particulars. You know how they say in sports, they say, styles make fights, styles make matchups.
Now, is there a particular 4th of July event you go to annually that provides the food?
That's the thing. We've never, even through my family, we may or may not have get together for a cookout or something like that, but it's not an annual thing. It's not even if there's like a big event tied to it. Sometimes we do stuff, sometimes we don't.
Okay.
But I always have that kind of consistent food there for it. So, 4th of July, the best holiday. Give me a hot dog, give me a hamburger, give me some chips, baked beans, some sort of cold salad. All of them I'm good with. Potato, macaroni, pasta, whatever. And let's go. That's my plate.
Yeah, go-to beverage for 4th of July?
Adult.
Adult, okay.
Yeah. give me any variety of the adult. Preferably the adult ones that you can stack up.
Yeah, have a few.
Yeah, that you can stack along the line. So yes, 4th of July, best eating holiday. If you disagree, that's fine, but that is the Preston Thorne take. That is the thing that's going to get us to the moon, the 4th of July thing. When we come back, Tyler, who's the face of college football media?
Okay.
Not sports media, because I think we all know those guys and probably don't like many of them.
Sure.
But college sports media. When we come back, we'll have that discussion. This is the early game.
And still working the earlier tie up I-26 eastbound at exit 119. So you're going to want to stay right because the two left lanes are still blocked from our understanding. And a couple storms today could be coming in this afternoon and this evening. 88 will be your high, heat index about 94. Tomorrow, 92 for the high with some clouds, and then the sunshine breaks out for the weekend. July 4th should be nice. 94 on Friday to 4th of July. 93 on Saturday, 90 on Sunday. Right now, it's kind of muggy out there. 75 and 107.5 the game.
Fourth of July, best eating holiday on the American calendar. I know there's others in other countries, but we're talking about America here. Talking about the greatest nation on earth, and so on the greatest nation on earth, you have to have the best eating holiday.
Back-to-back World War II, back-to-back World War champs.
We're going for it.
1776.
So we're in a new world of college athletics. If you just joined us, it's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. Yesterday marked the beginning of the new world.
Yep.
The beginning of the new world starts and begins with Rev Share. What is Rev Share? Rev Share is when the institutions have to pay athletes directly from their pockets. All right? So they're not going to someone else to get paid. They're not going to third parties. They're not going to collectives to raise money. They are paying athletes directly from the ticket sales, the media rights, student fees, or whatever way that they can raise money. They are now responsible for paying the athletes. The number that they have capped that number at is 20.5.
Mm-hmm.
There's some dispute about how they came up with that number. There will be more disputes. The best
and
way
that
I've
number
heard this,
can change as time goes along.
number can change,
it will.
and it will. The best way I heard to think about this is that this is a starting point, not a finish line.
Yep.
There will be changes. There will be more additions. There will be more lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them. But we have entered into the new world.
Well, wait for the first NIL deal to get turned down, and then boom, there's your first lawsuit.
Right. So there's some clear winners and losers from this,
Yeah.
right? Football and basketball, men's football, men's basketball across the board, they are going to be bolstered in that.
Those are the two highest producing revenue sports. And for most schools, that's kind of where your pie chart will be. Majority of football, next highest is men's basketball.
Jeremiah Donati was he on y'all's show?
He was on post-game show.
He was on the post-game show, and he was very coy about how that pie will be divided.
Yes.
And he said it's proprietary information, and he's not going to get into it, which when he explained it like that, I understood it.
I think Georgia was the first one that it became kind of public on what their revenue split was going to be. And I've seen a few other schools' numbers get thrown out there, but I think most people are kind of playing it close to the vest. And a place like Carolina, you do have other sports that people care a lot about. A best women's basketball program in the country, a baseball program with a very proud history that, let's face it, there's a lot of schools around the country that care less about their baseball program.
Right.
It's like, okay, we don't really need to give those guys a lot of money. But again, when you're trying to rebuild what was once a dynasty potentially, you're going to need some money to do that.
That leads us into another possible idea of who's winning and who's losing. Maybe some of your schools who are only proficient in a sport, maybe your Big East schools or other schools who have a clear delineation of this is the sport that we do.
Gonzaga, Xavier, Villanova, these schools are about to dominate men's basketball, I feel like, because they're going to have more money to spend on that sport than the vast majority.
They're going to have more money to allocate because, nobody's lining up. I'm Jen, I don't think.
Butler, yeah, there you go.
Jen, I don't think people are lining up for the Butler Bulldogs football team. I don't think.
That would be a big no.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're there. Not quite the same.
What do you think the top NIL earner on Butler's football team is making? $1.50?
Hey, we got a Starbucks card for you.
That we found.
Yeah, that we found, yeah. Kind of like me in the days where I was in the Fine Arts College. That's where the radio TV program was. And so we had to get, 36 hours a semester of like performance credit. Like you had to go to different performances and stuff like that. So literally I can remember walking past, I don't know, fraternity house or something, found somebody's ticket stub. Dude, I went to this, I don't care that it has grass all over it. So
That'll probably be it.
yeah. So that's probably how they found the Starbucks card.
The Butler Bulldog football team, definitely not the same as the basketball team.
No, not at all.
Clear
Not
line
even close.
on that. So there's going to be schools that clearly benefit that if they have that. On the other winners, obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten, right?
Yes, of course.
Now, I can say it, but Tyler, why did the SEC and the Big Ten win in this particular iteration of Rev Share?
Because they make more money than everybody else. Their television contracts are the biggest.
And I just said they're paying out of the media rights.
Yes.
So the more money you make, the more money you can afford to pay.
Yes.
And that's going to be that is a very simple equation. So football and basketball will win. Big Ten and SEC will win. Schools with only one sport that they have to dedicate this. I've introduced this concept. The schools are going to have to do this thing called a budget now.
Yes.
It's a weird thing that we've never had to have in college sports, but now they will have to have a budget.
So I don't know if you've kind of caught on to this phenomenon the past couple of years where people try and tout certain places as everything schools. Oh, we're not a football school. We're not a baseball school. We're not a basketball. We're an everything school. We're good at everything. Do you want to be good at everything right now? Because, again, that can potentially hurt your football program because, hey, guess what? You got to give more to your women's basketball program than the other schools because of how big and important that is to your institution. Like, maybe being an everything school isn't all of this cracked up to be anymore.
That's a great point. That's a really interesting point because I always think about my brain always goes straight to food, right? And so when you think about a restaurant, your best restaurants are usually good at a thing.
Yes.
Your restaurants that are good at everything, they're usually chain restaurants somewhere on the outskirts of a
That's
city.
a good point.
Right?
They have to appeal to everybody.
Yeah, if you have to appeal to everybody, you're probably not appealing to anyone. But the best restaurants do something very, very well.
And those restaurants typically have a very short menu where they have a very limited number of things because they're good at that one thing and have other good options as well. But that one thing is their priority.
A short menu and a high cost.
Yes, exactly. That's when you know.
Yeah, if the menu's the smaller the menu, the higher the cost.
Outside of Cheesecake Factory, if you're handing me a novel for your menu, I'm going to be a little bit worried because what do you mean you can also make fried chicken and tilapia?
Yeah.
And then you can also get some quesadillas and you can get some egg rolls.
Throw it all in the same fryer.
Stir fry.
It's
Why
all good.
not?
We can do it all.
These things are not like the others. I'm questioning your staff in the kitchen.
So those are your clear winners. Now the losers, G5 schools.
Of course.
Tyler, again, why are G5 schools losers?
Because they don't make as much money.
It's very simple.
And their NIL resource, which again, that's going to be your separation, is NIL at the end of the day that you can use on top of the revenue stream. They don't generate as much NIL. So guess what? You're not going to be able to get as some of the top-end athletes that the Power 4 institutions can get.
We've had new athletic director, Chance Miller from Coastal on here. Chance has been a very forward-thinking as far as being able to generate, create, make opportunities for his school, and that's what G5 schools are going to have to do.
Listen, I think it's in Coastal's best interest to just lean into baseball. You have a program that's already at a national championship level. Give them as much as you possibly can. Like, yeah, football's important. Football does generate the most revenue for them. But in terms of eyes on your school, what's going to get you the most notoriety, your team playing for and potentially winning another national championship does more wonders for you than your football team going 8-4 and playing in the Bahamas Bowl.
That's a really interesting point. It's a really interesting point because the story was about Coastal. They were on the national spotlight. And Coastal, other than right now having the teal field, which they also are leaning into that.
Yeah.
And what you'll find is more G5 schools are going to have to lean into the thing.
Doing something different.
Be different.
Be unique. Boise State, blue turf. That was their thing for so long. And yes, they did end up playing a lot of really good football over the years. But stand out, be different.
They're going to have to do that in order to make people want to pay attention to them. And so you'll see this happening, but the most important thing about Rev Share is that they will be paying directly from the schools to the athletes. Notice I'm going to try and continue saying athletes because we no longer have to live under the facade of saying student athlete anymore.
We want to be specific, and this is going to be very wordy, so it's not going to flow off the tongue as well. We can say athletes just happen to be students because that's what they are. It's like, okay, you are getting paid because you're an athlete. And I've always kind of like to use this example. When we talk about like college sports, they really kind of operate separate of the university. The athletic department is its own thing, generates its own revenue. They just kind of get to borrow the logos of the school, right? And like, hey, to play for us, you have to go to school here. Like, that's kind of how that works if you really get specific about it. So, yes, it's athletes that just happen to go to school at this institution.
Okay,
if we're being
that
specific.
might be a challenging acronym to come up with. We need to come up with something fancy like
like I said,
scuba.
I know it doesn't flow off the tongue quite as well.
Yeah.
Athletes who just happen to go at this specific institution during this specific time.
Yes.
Maybe for a couple of years because they
Maybe.
might transfer.
Yeah, like for this year at least, they belong to this school and will play for the associated athletic team. Yeah, that's gonna
tattoo that
take a
on your
while.
arm.
We're gonna have to workshop that one a little bit. We can get through it, but we're gonna have to workshop.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to workshop that one. But yes, we don't have to say student athlete anymore because we're not under the guise that this is amateurism. We're not. And if I make me remind everybody, the term student athlete was created by the NCAA to avoid a workman's comp lawsuit years ago.
Yes.
So it was just a thing that they created to say like, hey, these are student athletes.
It was basically the catalyst for oppression, if we're being honest. Like, that term is the overarching umbrella of why what the NCAA was doing for so long was illegal.
Right. So yeah, we've all agreed it, and in its loftiest terms, it's a great ideal. It is a great ideal in its loftiest, in its best ideal. Unfortunately, that wasn't always the case. So we don't have to do that anymore. So we're talking about athletes that play for their associated institution. I like that, Tyler.
Yes.
And we will get to that. So that's the new world that we're living in. I personally, I said it at the 6 o'clock. I'll say it again. I really like this new iteration of college athletics as opposed to the 4-year nightmare that we just lived through with the NIL era, because that to me was uncoordinated. It was messy. We didn't have any direction. And this at least provides some direction.
Because they just kind of opened up the doors and said, all right, have at it. And again, there was no parameters. Everybody's like, we can do what? We can pay these guys now? Okay. And again, it devolved into what it became.
Yeah, it devolved into the phrase. If you had to think, Tyler, how many times was the Wild Wild West used in the past 4 years?
A gajillion times.
Probably unsurmountable. You probably couldn't count the amount of times that particular phrase was
But it's
used.
true.
It is.
Because again, everybody's just like, okay, hey, we can pay these guys now? Okay. Well, I got $1 million. Can I just give it to this high school kid to come play for me? Yeah, I guess. Okay, I'm going to start doing that.
Well, again, there was a lot of conversation. There's always a lot of conversation around college sports. When we come back, the question was posed, who is the face of sports media? But I think that's too broad of a question. So we're going to narrow it down to, who do we think is the face of college sports media? Because one of the persons on this face made an absurd claim, and we'll get to that here in a moment. This is the early game.
I-26 eastbound at exit 119 still causing a little bit of a traffic snarl. The 2 left lanes are blocked, so going to want to stay right to get through that. 88 for the high today. Could see a heated exit approximately 94. And then those afternoon or evening storms are a distinct possibility today. But that system kind of moves out. Cloudy and 92 tomorrow. Your 4th of July looking to be sunny and 94 on Saturday, sunny and 93. A little bit muggy out there, though, this morning. It's 75 currently on 107.5 The Game.
As we move directly into talking season, it's only right that we talk about the talkers. Tyler,
Yep.
the phrase yapping, I feel like this is something that's happening with the Gen Zs now.
Okay.
And the Gen Alphas. They're using the phrase yap a lot.
All right.
Are you? Is this something that's come along? Is this something that's on your radar?
Yeah, I feel like it's always been around. I don't know if I've noticed an uptick in it necessarily, but I could see that fitting in with the slang of the I'm gonna sound old. The youth of today.
The kids these days.
Kids these days.
So the kids these days are using the term yapping. So let's talk about who are the primetime yappers. Now the question, and I believe it was posted by one of the guys.
Yeah,
I believe
one
it was
of them.
posted by Josh Pate.
Yeah,
who is Josh Pate considered polarizing?
I would say so. He's gained a lot of notoriety over the past couple of years. I don't think he is completely mainstream, but he is recognized as one of the larger voices, I feel like, in college sports.
Okay, so we got Josh Pate. His question was who is the recognized face of sports media?
Yes.
It was a bigger question. I think let's answer that really quickly. On 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. Stephen A. Smith. There we go.
As much as
Reluctantly, I say
as
that.
much as it shouldn't be.
Yes.
Probably, I think Pat McAfee is giving him a run for his money now, just with how big he has become. But I still think if you ask the average person, like, hey, tell me the name of a sports talking head, most people are probably going to say Stephen A. Smith.
And Jen, not only is he a sports talking head, but what else does he do?
He's Brick on General Hospital. He's like
that's right.
kind of an inside guy.
Wait, didn't he
little
shoot somebody
calm
in
and
one of like
cool for the local mob dude? Yeah,
Didn't he like shoot somebody in a recent episode or something like that?
he did. Brought the pillow and everything.
Yeah,
Like
like,
put the silencer
A.
on it. Oh yeah,
Jeez.
it's just hysterical.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere, much to his detriment. Because when Stephen A. Smith is focused, going back to this idea of doing a thing versus doing everything.
Sure.
When he's focused on basketball, he can be really good.
And did you see his daughter?
Oh yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
when
that-
she was
that
in the
was kinda
finals.
fun.
Star turn. She's gonna be a star.
Yeah.
She absolutely
She's
is.
really good on camera.
What Stephen A. Smith now is kind of a caricature.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yeah.
he's become so big, he's almost kind of like a shell of what he actually is. Where again, like you tune in expecting him to talk about LeBron's legacy for an hour because that's just kind of what we expect him to do. We're like, yeah, if he really focuses and zeroes in, he could give you some good basketball
Well,
insight.
he has the bona fides.
He just doesn't do that.
He has the bona fides. He's a writer. He comes.
Yeah.
He was on the beat. He grew up
He
in
played,
the traditional
he played college
thing.
basketball at Winston-Salem
Right.
State.
He has all the traditional things, but we know what he's doing now. So let's move him out. Move him aside. That's interesting.
does
we
what
said
makes
the same
money.
Guy. Oh, a
Yeah.
lot. He's very well compensated. So let's talk about college sports. And
Yep.
I guess when we talk about college sports, let's specifically talk about college football because I think college basketball might have another column also.
Sure.
So Tyler, if you were to say, let's just go top 2, depth chart style.
Okay.
Top 2 college sport media voices in your opinion.
Okay. Probably Herb Street and Feinbaum, and not necessarily in that order. But those kind of are the top 2 that come to mind. And like Herb Street, obviously College Game Day does, the game of the week on Saturday nights at 7:30. But like he doesn't have like his own show. Like he is a guest on like McAfee, and he'll be a guest on a lot of things. But like he does not have and maybe does he have a podcast? Maybe he has a podcast now, but like
Everybody does,
He
so
doesn't have
probably.
like this central thing that I think we tune into every single week. Like, hey, I wonder what Herbie thinks about this. He'll be brought on for his opinions on things, but like out of all of the talking heads, he's the one that I feel like doesn't quite have the central thing every single day that we can tune into and hear his thoughts on.
Also, in that light, it feels like Herb Street has taken a more editorial stance the past couple of years.
Sure.
Whereas I guess what I mean is that before he was, I won't say a company man, but he essentially was toe the line, talk about the games only, analysis of the games. It seems in the recent years, much to his credit, he's expanded that.
Right.
He's made a little bit more editorializing as far as that's concerned. All right, so if those are your top two, Tyler, if we just say those are the pop stars, give us maybe some niche guys if you wanted to get to maybe the next level. Like, okay, we have your big bands who are selling out arenas. What would you say is like your next level, your underground? Because we'll get to the underground guys here in a minute.
right.
Who's your next level on that?
I would probably say a guy like Pate.
Pate.
So Pate is kind of following what I feel like is the Nickelback model, where for those of people that have listened to him for a very long time, that have kind of come from the roots, like, man, I've been a fan with him since day one. It's getting to the point now where he's getting so big, people are like, he's turning into a shill. He's turning his back on this. He's turning his back on that. He's got too much money behind him now. Like, it's becoming a Nickelback type of thing with him that I've started to notice.
So it's when your favorite brand blows up.
Yeah, they get too big, and you can't be like, oh, I know about them and you don't. Like, everybody knows who Nickelback is, and the people that were there from the beginning are mad about it.
There's a really interesting thing that's happening right now because there's a band who I've just sort of fell into. His name's Turnstile.
Okay.
And they are a hardcore punk band, I guess, but they're kind of blowing up right now.
Yeah.
And the fans don't like it.
Right.
But here's the thing: I'm a casual.
Sure.
I like the newer, softer stuff.
Listen, we all like to know about something that other people don't know. We all like to have a secret.
You want to be
right?
on
Like,
the
hey,
inside.
you're listening to those guys. I got a band.
This is the
that's
real.
way better.
Yes.
But when they start getting big, it's like they've sold out. They're too big now. They don't understand their audience anymore. It always happens that way.
So
Again, it's the Nickelbackification.
This is so you got Josh Pate as being that guy who's sort of on the precipice of blowing up, I think.
Yeah.
And I've started paying attention to him more.
I think Greg McElroy is probably in that conversation. Again, he does Jocks FM every single morning with Cole Kubelik and has his own podcast. He's obviously featured on ESPN when it comes to calling games and stuff like that. I feel like his stuff is and I kind of base this a lot on, like, if I'm scrolling through Twitter, like, what are people talking about, what things are getting clipped and retweeted and all that kind of stuff. I see a lot of his stuff show up in that way too. So it's being talked about in the general discussion of college football.
Okay, now to close the segment out, Tyler, do you have anybody who you could recommend as like an underground, up and coming, somebody who you think does a really good job that maybe everybody's not aware of?
Oh man, that is a good question. Nobody that comes to the top of mind. And he's not really specific to college sports. There's a guy on YouTube called KTO, and his stuff is more just like across the sports spectrum, but he does very good in-depth, like, historical type of things that I think are very insightful. I've learned a lot from him. So if I kind of had to put somebody out there, I'd probably say him. But again, it's not quite the commentary of like what's happening right now like these other guys are.
That's really interesting because I had not thought about this until you just said it. But my underground guys is somebody that we shared in common. That I heard you had him on the show, Michael Felder.
Yes, Felder.
Felder's,
okay.
I think Felder's really, really good, and he does stuff.
He does it in his own way.
He's very interesting the way he does it. Also, my underground guy who I've seen blow up, especially as we enter the Rev Share era, Matt Brown from Extra Points.
Yes, the video game expert.
He's the video game expert. He has a lot of things. And the last one I'll give you,
All right.
these are a lot of guys from Twitter, Midwinter.
Yes, specifically when it comes to legality of things.
So those are my three underground guys. When I see them blowing up, Tyler, it was so funny. I was driving, and I was listening to your show, and I heard you say, "All right, next coming up, we got Michael Felder." I was like, "Felder, that's my guy," and I was like, "Oh man."
Felder is always available.
Yes.
So whenever we need somebody like, hey man, you good for tomorrow? Yeah, let's do it.
Big Felder's awesome. And what's interesting about Felder is I really started following him because of his cooking stuff.
Yes, I've not gotten into his cooking stuff as much.
Yo, he's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's tremendous. As good as he is with analysis about college sports. So those are your folks. If you're looking for sports media, we go at the top. We got Herb Street. We got Feinbaum, which we'll come to here in a second. Next level, Pate, McElroy, Pate, the nickelbackification of sports analysis.
And this will kind of lead us into where we're going with Feinbaum. He's getting to the point now where he's almost kind of flirting with that Stephen A. Smith territory. Where, like, I don't think he believes everything he says that comes out of his mouth.
Big point. Feinbaum said something that, as you said, Tyler, I'm not sure he believes. And if he does believe it, then we have even bigger questions.
Yeah.
This is the early game.
And still working that earlier tie-up, I-26 eastbound just after exit 119. The two left lanes are blocked, so of course you're going to want to be staying to the right to get through there. Hopefully that'll be cleaned up and moving along a little bit better here very, very soon. 88 for the high today, a heated next about 94. Looking for those afternoon and evening storms, distinct possibility. Those may roll in today. Tomorrow, some clouds, 92. Your 4th of July is looking great. Sunny and 94. Saturday, we're looking for sunny and 93. So great forecast on the way. Get through those showers and storms today. Right now, a little bit muggy out there, and it's about 75 on 107.5 The Game.
The absolute roof. I think there's a reasonably good chance that Arch Manning will be sitting on the front row in New York at the Heisman ceremony. That's assuming that his team does what it's supposed to do and compete for not only the SEC, but for the national champ. And I really believe they will. I think Steve Sarkisian, who's one of the most amazing play callers I've ever seen, made a critical mistake late in the year. He was way too loyal to Quinn Ewers, who was banged up and was really ineffective. Had Arch Manning been instituted in the second half of that game, like Nick Saban did a couple of years ago with Tagovailoa, I think there's a reasonably good chance that Texas would have beaten Ohio State and won the national championship. They're very capable of doing it again this year. I believe also that Arch Manning is the best college football quarterback we have seen since Tim Tebow entered the scene in 2006.
Who's in the background that said, wow?
It was on Get Up. I don't forget who that was. It was one of the people on there.
So there's 3 components of this statement. Let's just start at the end.
Yep.
Arch Manning is the best college quarterback since Tim Tebow. Do you think Paul Feinbaum believes that? And do we agree with that?
No, I don't think he believes it. Okay. I don't agree with it from the standpoint of what we've known up to this point. Because I think from a hype standpoint, maybe. And again, I was, 2006, I was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. So I was not paying attention to the greater realm of sports media as much then as I do now. So maybe I didn't quite see all of the hype surrounding Tebow. Like, obviously, I watched Tebow when he was playing and understood how good of a player he was. But, like, before he ever took a snap at Florida, I don't know if I quite understood the hype around him. Maybe you saw it differently. Maybe you heard things differently.
Well, it's interesting you say 2006 because I had finished playing not too long before that, and I was in my decidedly I'm not paying attention to anything about football because I just played a lot of football.
You got it out of your system.
I'm good on anything really involving football. I'll watch very, very, very casually. So yes, but I do know that there was a lot of hype around him coming in. But the question he stated was the best since, and he was talking about. He wasn't talking about hype. He was talking about performance on the field, right?
Yeah. I would also say, do we forget about a couple guys in the time since then? Cam Newton, who I will always say is the greatest college football player ever for what he did in that 1 year with a bunch of misfits at Auburn to a national championship. Joe Burrow, 2019. Like, there's a lot of really, really good quarterbacks that have come along since Tebow that also went on to have success at the next level because what they did in college transferred over. Like, Tebow was very successful, yes, but he also operated an offense that was built perfectly around him.
You have those guys. You have Joe Burrow, who broke all the single-season records. You have Cam Newton. This list can go on pretty long of guys who were, if not as good, very good since Tim Tebow was there.
Sure.
There was another guy up the road. I know we don't like to say those names up here, but and this is somebody I wanted to specifically bring up with you because I believe he's from your area.
Yeah.
Hype-wise and performance-wise, could we not put Trevor Lawrence in that same conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was kind of touted as like Peyton Manning-esque coming out of Cartersville, and didn't take him long to take the job from Kelly Bryant at Clemson. Won national championships.
His freshman year.
Like, I'd say he lived up to the hype.
Yeah, and if you
went on to be #1 pick.
If you even want to go down that rabbit hole even further, he went to, I think I'm looking up here because I don't want to pay attention to 3 CFPs, right? He went to 3 CFPs. He won it his freshman year. And contrary to what Tebow did, Trevor actually won it his freshman year.
Yes, he
Tebow
did.
was on the team.
Tebow came in certain packages. Chris Leak was the quarterback of that team.
Correct. So Trevor won it his freshman year. So that was another one I was like, did we not forget that guy played right up the road?
By the way, going back to Feinbaum's comments, I want to point this out specifically, where he says, again, going back to the semifinal game where the fumble happens that leads to Ohio State winning when Texas was on the goal line there with a couple minutes left. He says if Arch Manning comes into that game, then Texas wins the game, goes on to the national championship. But Arch Manning had his opportunity early on in the season. Texas was down 20-0 against Georgia at home
I keep bringing this
back
up,
in October. They had gone 3 and out. Georgia went down the field, got a field goal, made it 20-0. They made the switch. Arch Manning comes in. They proceed to go 23 yards and punt. They come out again after Georgia punts and goes 3 and out. Arch Manning fumbles before halftime. Georgia takes into the half after getting a field goal, and then they switch back to Quinn Ewers. He had 2 drives against what was arguably one of the worst defenses Georgia's had in the past handful of years to make something happen. I've said this many times. If he leads them down the field for a touchdown on one of those 2 drives, Quinn Ewers never sees the field again. He had his chance and he didn't take it.
Tyler, all I can say is amen. I've been trying to say this over and over and over again because I'm not as if I am against Arch Manning. Obviously, he's good. Obviously, he has the pedigree, and I don't want to hold it against him that his last name is Manning, and so I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is that when he did get an opportunity in a big-time game, he didn't show up, and that's fine because he was a freshman. He was young.
Yeah.
That is a very
And
tough
he's been
spot.
very quiet about him.
Yes, and he's been
You're
good.
not seeing headlines.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not him.
It's not
everybody
him.
around him.
Again, he is burdened with this name of Manning.
And again, yes, I'm sure he's lived a charmed life because of that. But this, in the athletic sense, is difficult task.
I thought Dan Wetzel, and I'm sure you guys used the cut last week, brought up a really good point that, like, there's a possibility he could be really good but not live up to this crazy hype. Because, again, if he doesn't win the national championship and hoist a Heisman Trophy, there's going to be people saying, yeah, but he wasn't as good as we thought he was going to be in college. He could still be a really good quarterback. He could still lead Texas to the college football playoff and still not be what a lot of people think he's going to be.
Well, again, the name carries a lot of weight.
It does.
Unfortunately, his uncles were very good, and unfortunately, they were both very good in the SEC. Both were, one was very good in the NFL. The other one was a Super Bowl winner 2 times.
The other one turned it on when he needed to on a couple playoff runs.
You can decide who that is.
There's nothing more dangerous than fourth quarter of playoff Eli Manning.
Correct.
First 3 quarters, regular season,
Second part of that question. Second part of that quote. Arch Manning, front row, Heisman. What you think?
Man. If I'm betting on it right now, but again, it seems so wide open this year. Like, I don't think there's a definitive, like, favorite going into the year of, like, oh, this guy's definitely going to, I think we talked about Travis Hunter last year. Like, man, if this guy goes out there and has a really good season, he could win the Heisman. I know when you're talking about non-quarterbacks winning it, it's always definitely a bit of a stretch, and he went out there and did it. But, like, I don't think we have, like, a short list of, like, guarantees that we think are going to be there. So, like, yeah, sure, it could happen, but it could also not happen. So I wouldn't put money on it at this point in time.
The caveat, and I'll shoot Paul Feinbaum some bail here. The caveat that he said was if his team is in the national championship as they're supposed to be, and if they perform, then that would obviously mean that Arch Manning had that type of season. But you don't agree.
Like, Will Howard just won a national championship, and he wasn't on the Heisman Trophy stage. Now, could Manning's name, which carries a lot more cachet than Will Howard's, could that, even if you put up similar numbers, get him to New York? I think it could, but it's not a guarantee. Because, again, he's got this, like, baked-in perception about him, right? Where, again, if he is good, like, I think his good is going to be seen as better than the average player's good because of who he is, because of his name, because of his family. So that might skew some people that say, hey, even if his numbers aren't elite, that could still get him to the stage or to the front row in New York, maybe. I don't know. We haven't seen this kind of situation come along a lot in college football.
Also, does he just need to be a plug-and-play guy, right? He just needs to get in there and do fine enough according to what the talent is supposed to be around them.
Yeah. Oh, he could point guard. Like, it's, the classic case of, hey, just get the ball out to your playmakers.
And I want to throw this alley-oop to you one more time to make your case for Cam Newton, because that was diametrically not the case for Cam.
Cam Newton played on an offense that featured one other start in an NFL career by one of the offensive linemen. Quite literally, nobody else on that Auburn offense played at the next level except for Cam Newton. And on the defense, I think it was only
two.
Nick Fairley and maybe one other guy.
Yep.
He carried that team to a national championship. If Texas wins the national championship this year, it's not because Arch Manning put the team on his back and carried them there.
Tyler rests his case.
And again, this is Auburn I'm talking about. I hate Auburn as much as the next guy. Cam Newton bugged me at Auburn. He bugged me when he was the Carolina Panthers. But I can test that he is probably the greatest college football player of all time.
Well, the next quarterback's not the greatest, Tyler, but he might be the funniest. Our boy Jameis is back. He does not disappoint. This is the early game. Welcome back into the early game. We're having a little bit of discussion. We're talking about sports, the sports media landscape. Paul Feinbaum said something that I disagree with. And what did he say? He said that Arch Manning has the potential. He didn't say the potential. He didn't say, I'm giving him a. He said Arch Manning will be the best quarterback since Tim Tebow in 2006.
Could he be perhaps the most polarizing? Possibly. But, like, again, I think, are we leaving out a lot of great quarterbacks that have played since Tim Tebow?
He is. And one great quarterback he's leaving out was a quarterback who went undefeated.
Yep.
A quarterback who won a national championship.
Who lost one game in his entire college career.
Lost one game in his entire college career. And that quarterback is our guy, Jameis. Jameis has went into career rehabilitation and come back out as a star. Now, I want to be, it's always tricky talking about Jameis.
Sure.
Because Jameis had some really serious accusations that were.
He did some they
were not good.
Bad things.
Yes. So, however, we are on the other side of those things. Penance has been paid. Okay. And when I say bad things, I'm not talking about getting the hookup on crab legs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
like very serious
the way he was
accusations
with women.
Yes.
Not good. So it's always tricky when we kind of picture him as the clown jester of the circus.
Yes.
But then he says things like this. Jen, can we get the highlights? This is clip number 2. Jameis Winston's first presser with the New York Giants. And, he wins the press.
Hello. Good to meet y'all. No Zoom, real life. I'm grateful that I can bring joy to the game. I think if you ask any of my teammates, any of my coaches who I am, they would say Jameis is truly who he is. But my job is to be the best Jameis Winston that I can be. When you're a giver, you get back. You know, when you're a taker, you know, you really don't get much back. The toughest way to experience something is through experience. All touchdowns we love. I don't think there's one touchdown that I haven't loved in my life. And what we would love is to be the Super Bowl winning champions. All right, guys. Until next time, all right? Until next time.
Jen?
When you're a taker, really?
Yeah. Hey, when you take things, you don't tend to get things.
We could probably run down the top 5 of Jameis clips. If I was doing this off the top of my head, obviously the Eating the W.
Eating the W.
That's the top one.
The emotions of playing in the snow in Cleveland last year.
Great.
Which just turned into a great meme where he's just like almost tearing up at the thought of playing football in the snow in Cleveland.
My personal favorite was from last year. Lord, please deliver me from these pick sixes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one.
So Jameis has made a star turn, and I would contend that Jameis is going to – listen, Jameis, I know you want to play in the NFL. The salary is good. You're going to be a backup quarterback. But you're wasting your time. Let's get on TV now.
Well, at the Super Bowl, they sent him around during media days.
Perfect guy.
Asking Saquon Barkley, hey, man, where should I go? Hey, man, maybe you should go to the Giants. He ended up on the Giants. Like, this dude just has a natural charisma and goofiness. But, like, clearly the class clown in high school, right? The guy everybody wanted to be friends with, probably.
Well, when you say that, there's the picture of him trying to the squinting picture with him when he doesn't have because he's highly memeable.
Yes.
He has everything that you need. He's charismatic, highly memeable.
I love highly memeable.
Yes.
That's awesome.
He makes so many memes of Jameis.
And again, this was because of something serious that he did that was wrong. When he had to sit out the game in 2014 for the thing that he said on the picnic table, and he comes out dressed for warm-ups, and like Jimbo Fisher's bewilderment as he tries to explain to him, you're not playing.
Yeah.
Go take your pads and helmet off.
Yeah.
And Jameis is just like, well, what do you mean, coach?
Were you serious about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was that. There's what's my other favorite one from Jameis? Like I said, when I go back to highly memeable, he has so many clips of him warming up.
Yes.
And his workouts, which are absolutely ridiculous. And I'm convinced he's only doing this to get on the gram.
He understands who he is.
He said that. He said
if you ask his teammates, they'll say Jameis Winston is who he is.
Jameis is who he is. There's all the teammates talking about his pregame speeches.
Oh gosh, yeah, those are
It's like,
legendary.
him telling when he gives plays in the huddle, it's like he's telling you a secret.
Guys, come here.
And here's the thing. Oh, and let's not forget again, because this guy won a national championship,
Yes.
lost one game in his college career.
Yep.
In the NFL, he has the distinction of being the only 30 for 30 and 30
That's right.
guy. Now, if you don't know what that means 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions
Yes, and
in a single season.
if I remember correctly, I believe he bookended his time with the Bucks with a interception on his first throw against the Titans and an interception on his last throw against the Falcons.
And he has asked the Lord to deliver him from this pick sixes. That quarterback room is going to be very interesting. We've talked about that.
Yes.
Two very interesting brands of people, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston.
The fight over the team prayer is going to be something this year.
Yeah, give me Jameis. Give me.
Do you think they're on
give me
opposite
Jameis.
sides of the room trying to outdo each other? Just going louder and louder while that's happening?
Yeah, but Russell doesn't have quite the charisma to pull it off.
No, he does not. Russell is a goofball in a different way.
Right. He's lacking the. Yeah, what's going to be interesting is how Russell's going to be the starting quarterback.
Yes.
And everybody's going to be listening to what Jameis has to say.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be the issue. So, Jameis, I'm glad that you've gotten on the other side of your very serious accusations. Continue down this path. We look forward to seeing you on TV. When we come back, it's a new world in Rev Share and Cruton. Tyler has brought something very interesting to my attention. We'll talk about it more. This is the early game.
Working on getting things cleaned up there, I-26 eastbound around exit 119. Also, Methodist Park Road at Highway 1 in Lexington County and St. Peter's Church Road at Highway 76. So be mindful of those this morning. And yeah, could see some afternoon and evening thunderstorms, a system kind of coming in. 88 for the high today, heat index about 94. But then that will be clearing out later tonight. And tomorrow, we're going to have some clouds, 92. For your 4th of July, we're looking at sunny skies and 94. Going to be 93 on Saturday, 90 on Sunday. So great weekend ahead and looks to be a really nice 4th of July. But a little bit overcast this morning, 76, kind of muggy. 107.5 The Game.
Welcome into the early game, top of the hour. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. It's a new world. We've discussed it at the 6. We discussed it at the 7. If you're just joining us, you may or may not know we have officially entered in a new world in college athletics. We are in the Rev Share era.
Yep.
If we were looking at a timeline, you know how if you're talking about art, you might have like the Impressionist era, or you might have the Baroque era if we're talking about classical music or something.
Sure.
We are leaving the NIL era, and we are entering the Rev Share era.
And unlike those different types of things, you don't really know when a new era starts.
There you go.
You're just kind of in the middle of it. It's like, hey, you kind of realize this is different than what we were doing 5 years ago. Like, oh, yeah, I guess it's kind of a different era. And then it becomes a thing. Like, very rarely do you have a definitive start point for a new era. But in college, I guess, when the calendar turns over on July 1st, you do have definitive start points for eras.
And so there will still be NIL, but it won't look the way that it's looked or the way that it came to look. So if you're just catching up with us, the Rev Share era started on July 1st. The calendar has switched over based on the House settlement, which will, in effect, make institutions be the sole proprietors for paying their athletes.
Yeah, they will finally actually be getting the money that was generated through the TV deals, through ticket sales, merchandise, all that kind of stuff. Because before, past 4 years, when we were in the NIL era, starting in 2021 on July 1st, it was all paid from third parties on the outside.
Right. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again and I will continue to say this. This, to me, is where we should have started. We should have started with this idea. If we were going to cross the threshold of no longer believing in the farce of amateurism, when we decided to cross that threshold, we should have just skipped NIL era, went directly to this. Because for me, the idea of asking third parties, you, me, boosters, collectives, whatever, to pay and supplement this, and they're not using this word, but it is what it is, the salaries of these athletes, I thought that was criminal. I didn't think that was a great idea.
If the NCAA would have been more forward-thinking, understanding where their structure of NIL would have ended up, then we could have had the solution several years ago. Instead, it became, as we talked about earlier, the Wild Wild West, and it had to be, and it's not really wrangled in, but you had to figure out what the next step was, which led to revenue sharing. But again, NIL is so out of control, there's no telling where that's going to go from here in addition to revenue sharing.
So it's the important way to frame it, and the way I've read it, and it made the most sense to me, is that this is a starting point, not a finish line. Much like you said about errors, you don't know when an error begins or when it ends, but till we get later, we can see things. This is the starting point. There will be more litigation. There will be more conversations. Things will change. The number of 20.5, which is right now, that number will change. That number will go up because here's what's coming down the pipeline. There are going to be schools that are going to ask, well, why can we only pay 20.5?
Sure. And those are the Ohio States, the Texases, Alabama, Georgia, whoever that have the means to pay their athletes more. And they want to be able to separate themselves from all these other schools they don't feel like they should be competing with, saying, hey, if I got $30 million that I can spend, why can't I spend $30 million? And again, where does that go from here? What lawsuits does that lead to? That is potentially the doorstep to the next era of college sports in 5 to 6 years.
Right, and on the flip side, from the player side, how can you tell me what my value is? If somebody wants to pay me, how can you tell me that that's not fair?
When this NIL Go clearinghouse starts turning down deals by saying that's not legit enough, again, line it up. We're going back to court.
Right.
Because, again, how can you tell me that somebody paying me is not legitimate?
So two things are going to emerge. And the more we move forward, the more we'll go backwards. Moving forward, we'll have the NIL Go where you have to submit all of your NIL deals to this clearinghouse where they have to decide.
Anything over $600.
So you'll see a lot of $599 payments.
Yep.
You'll see
like, wow, Bryce Underwood's got $8,599 deals on the table. That's weird.
You'll see a lot of $599 because listen,
if you draw a line in the sand, people are going to find a way to get around it. There's going to be a gray area.
They will always get as close. It's the same thing that me, you, or anybody does when it's tax time or when there's any type of way to get as close to the line as possible.
Exactly.
We will get there.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen.
Yeah.
The other part, here comes the bag man. The bag man is back.
He's back. He's been retired for a couple years now. He's got the phone call on his burner phone that he'll now throw in the trash after this conversation's over. Hey man, need you again.
You're back.
You're back.
Cash is back.
All right, we're meeting in parking lots. We're putting things in McDonald's bags again. We're going under the table. You ready? Ready? You ready to get back in the game? That could actually be a really good action movie. Bagman back in action. Again, he's retired. He's settled down. He's had some kids. That life's behind me. But his family knows nothing about what he used to do. And then he gets that phone call. Hey, revenue sharing, I'm going to need you back.
There's a defensive end that we need.
Are you ready to get back in the game? He has that long look in the mirror. He used to be the best at this.
Because the bagman has a special set of skills.
The bagman has a special set of skills. And they need him. And he's back in action.
Well, I'm not going to – we don't know, but maybe we needed the bagman in this recruiting cycle.
And isn't it so funny? Because for the longest time, we could just pretend like these things weren't happening when we all knew everybody was doing it. Boom, there you go. Bagman back in action. And, you could just, cover your ears and just oh, well, my school's not doing that. It's the other schools that are cheating. When we knew everybody was doing it, but then it became over on top of the table and everybody's like, oh, I hate this.
Well,
why are we doing this?
It was always them.
It was always them, right.
When you lost a recruit, it was them.
Oh, because they paid them.
And when you got a recruit, it's culture.
Yeah.
He wants to be here.
Quickly, before we move on to this next thing here, when P.J. Dean committed to Georgia, I actually scrolled through a lot of, Gamecock-related things to see if the, oh, well, they just paid him more came up. I didn't really see that.
Good point. And that's a great thing. One, it's Georgia. I think we maybe bow down in deference.
Sure.
It was great to be on the other end because we're not usually on this end, but we've been on this end a couple of different times. One with Nick Harbor from the Maryland folks. They're like, oh, the NIL bag from South Carolina is too much. Then we saw, and I forget the recruit's name, but he's in this last wide receiver from this last cycle with Penn State.
Lex Cyrus.
Yep. You saw those guys. I saw the Penn State bag.
Well, that Carolina money.
Yeah,
wait, Carolina has that much?
They got a bunch of barbecue barons down in South Carolina. They just pay those guys all those kinds. So it was good to be on that side of the equation for once.
It's this is what this feels like.
But South Carolina may need the bag man, however it works.
Yep.
But this past week, I would say 2 L's. As Chris Clark stated, and I would encourage everybody to go read the article, the sky's not falling as far as recruiting, but they did lose 2 significant defensive line battles. They lost to P.J. Dean. They lost him to Georgia. No shame, no fault.
Sure.
The other one, which a lot of questions are coming out, was Julian Walker, defensive end from Dutch Fork, 6'6", 240. As I stated, I saw what he could do against Somerville in the state championship. Kid can play.
And it hurts more when it's right in your backyard.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You always want your local guys to be a part of the program. There is another aspect that obviously the internet is latching on to, is that Julian's father is an assistant strength coach on the staff. I think we pretty much stated like, hey, man, just because your dad works there doesn't mean you have to go there.
That might actually put it lower on your list because, like, hey, I want to be my own guy in college. I want to have my dad hovering around me at all times.
Everybody's not doing on the Bryce James plan, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's not doing that.
You know, there's nothing
on the
worse.
Bronny James plan.
Exactly.
We've yet to see the Bryce James plan.
There's probably nothing worse for him than the thought of, hey, you know, he's on campus. Maybe he's talking to a girl at the library, and here comes dad walking up. Hey, son. How's it going? Like, man, killing the vibe.
You want to slacken your workouts, but not only is your coach on you, but your dad's on
Exactly.
you.
And let me tell you, on a much smaller scale, my mom was my English teacher in 8th grade.
Wait. Not in your school, your actual teacher?
She was my actual teacher.
Oh, man, how did that go?
Yeah. Well, luckily, believe it or not, English was a strong subject for me, and I worked twice as hard in that class because if anything came up, oh, she got an A because, you know, I wanted it to be where they could take it to another teacher, have them grade it, and probably get the same,
Okay,
you know.
when you raised your hand, did you ever refer to her as mom?
No, I would usually my friend Joy sat in front of me, and I'd be like, hey, Joy, get my mom. I got a question. So I'd be like, Mrs. Jensen, she has a question. You know, smaller school, so couldn't avoid it.
I've always heard, you know, you might be in the same school with your parents, which is terrible.
Yeah,
because
sure.
they can see you.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah,
my
you can't
dad
get-
was on
you
the
can't get
school
away with
board.
it.
Because we all have different lives at school.
Heard you were acting up at lunch. What's going on?
Yeah.
Don't want that.
Oh, yeah. No, it was tough. And then my dad was on the school board. In fact, I got my diploma from him, which is kind of cool at
That's cool.
graduation. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, as far as mom being the teacher, yeah, it was just, again, fortunately, it was a subject I was good at, so I could do well with it. But it was weird, and you know, you'd get so did you get your homework done? Yes, I did.
So, Mom, about that test tomorrow.
Yeah.
What
Any leads on that?
what's gonna be on that?
Jen sees the teacher key over here. She could move things around. That's really interesting. So yes, Julian Walker, maybe you may not, he didn't want to go, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because also, hey, these jobs change. His dad may or may not be working for South Carolina forever.
Sure.
So you can't make a lifetime decision for the child based on where his father works temporarily. So I would dispel a lot of that. But just on straight football reasons, we needed to have this guy because
It's an area of need.
area of need for the defensive line.
What can we do to go steal him?
Gotta get a bag.
Yeah, see?
Gotta get that.
Gotta get that Mission Impossible music going
gotta
again.
Get the bag man to get there. So recruiting is still happening, and that's the other part about the Rev Share is I do believe that it somehow, strangely enough, might have re-emphasizes high school recruiting.
Because again, now everybody is going to get paid as soon as they get here. You don't have to, again, go out there and pay $500,000 for a left tackle that you're not sure is going to play for you for another 2 to 3 years. Like, again, and we don't know what the exact numbers are, but let's just say every football player is going to get $100,000. So you know if you sign a high school recruit, he's getting $100K. Now, he's the opportunity to make more of that through NIL later on when he gets there, but it's not this like franticness of like, okay, we got to pay all these guys in this upcoming class just to make sure they commit to us. Everybody's going to get something when they sign with you regardless. So I feel like there's less pressure and less need to throw all your NIL resources at guys that haven't proven anything yet.
All right, so the lifeblood of college football is recruiting. We get that.
Yep.
The lifeblood of NBA basketball is free agency.
Yes.
It's the thing that people love to talk about. When we come back, we'll talk about how in just 2 weeks, things have drastically changed for OKC and the Pacers. This is the early game.
I-26 eastbound, still a slowdown there at exit 119. Two left lanes appear to still be blocked. Methodist Park Road at Highway 1 and St. Peter's Church Road at Highway 76. Could see those afternoon and evening thunderstorms today, a little more likely than they were yesterday. 88 will be the high today, 92 tomorrow, and sunshine, and 94 for your 4th of July. 76 with some clouds currently, 107.5 the game.
AT&T just sent me a heads up on the best plan for me.
That's cool.
They know what a pro wants.
What a pro needs.
Whatever makes me happy.
Sets you free.
And I'm
Thanking you for knowing exactly what a pro wants, what a pro needs. Whatever makes me happy sets me free. Good. A little bit flat. We'll get better.
AT&T provides proactive recommendations so you get what's right for you.
I promise that is the last time I will use that.
Is this your favorite commercial? Or are you just mesmerized by it?
I'm mesmerized by how bad it is.
Yeah.
It's almost bad, so bad that it's become good.
Sure.
And
So cringeworthy.
so cringeworthy. And I'm kind of marveling at the idea that whoever the folks were at that particular company that thought that this group was going to be the people, because there's no real reason why you should have thought 2 years ago that OKC was going to be what they are now. They were good. They were fine.
Yeah. Well,
But the foresight is kind of what's amazing to me.
And none of those three guys are like well-known personalities either. I brought this point up to you when we were talking about this during the playoff run. I was like, if you're the casual person watching a non-sports program and that commercial comes on, you have no clue who any of those guys are. Like LeBron and Steph. Those guys are, Draymond Green, James Harden. Those guys are well enough known outside the realms of basketball. The average person could see them in a commercial like, oh, I know who that is. I may not watch basketball, but I know who that is. You could watch that commercial and be like, I don't know who any of these guys are. Why are they important? Why are they singing? What are they pros at? I don't know.
You would not know.
You would not know.
By the way, if you don't know, it's SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and the Jalen Williams from the team, right? Not the other one.
One of two.
One of two.
The more
Jalen
important
Williams.
one.
Yes. The big three on that particular squad from OKC, and this was 2 years ago before they won the championship. And the reason why I use that as an entry point, and I will only play that again if they start going, it's retired until NBA season starts.
We can put that on the hotkeys for you. How about that?
Maybe. Because you have a tale of two teams. Just 2 weeks ago, we're talking about OKC and Indiana. It's not even 2 weeks. It was last week. OKC and Indiana. They're playing in the NBA. They're playing in the finals. Game 7. Everything's on the line. You have OKC, who has the youngest roster, trying to break through. They have this great NBA regular season. They're on the verge. Indiana has this amazing playoff run, making all the clutch shots, coming back. The young team, led by Tyrese Halliburton. Boom. Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt game 7. They lose. And all of a sudden, you're that close. And now you have two teams which apparently are going in dramatically different directions now.
Yeah, in less than 2 weeks, you've now lost two of your starters from that team for the next season. One of them, obviously, to injury, and two of them to go into another team.
Right. Indiana Pacers, because traditionally not a major market team and the ownership not necessarily willing to spend all the money that they have available to them, they decided to let Miles Turner walk in free agency. So Miles Turner was the stretch three-pointer. And this is more of a conversation just about what teams decide to do and how close you can be to a championship deciding your fate.
Right.
Miles Turner is right there. Miles Turner is a very good NBA stretch big man. They let him go to Milwaukee for the NBA salaries are ridiculous. We ain't even going to talk about the amount of money. We just saw Dennis Schroeder
Still around.
still in the league doing something. But anyway, Miles Turner, they let him walk, and now all of a sudden, your best center and your star of the team, your best player on the team, are no longer there next year. And you're an Indiana fan who was this close to winning a championship, and now essentially for the next year or two, you won't be there.
Yep.
Pretty much guaranteed. And that's how quick things can happen. On the flip side, OKC wins the championship. They have all these young guys, have people on contract. SGA was already on contract, but you know what they said? They said, you know what?
Yeah, we'll lock him down.
Let's lock him down. So he signs the Supermax deal, 4 years for a lot of money, $285 million. Again, NBA contracts are wild.
Yep.
But they're locked in. And if you're an OKC fan, you're like, we have 4 years.
Yeah.
We have a chance to do something really special for the next 4 years.
Every team has windows.
Yep.
Championship level teams have windows. Some of them really long. Again, you look at, the Alabamas and the Patriots of the world that did it for a long period of time and won a lot of championships in the process. Some of them are very, very short, where it's like, hey, if you don't capitalize that one time you get there, you may never get back again. Indiana looking like that might be an example of that. And again, when Tyrese Halliburton comes back for his injury, we don't know how good he's going to be. We don't know what the makeup of that team is going to look like by that point in time. So you could reflect and say, man, and again, that's what stings so much about him getting hurt in Game 7. Because if he plays that entire game, who knows what happens? Maybe they do win the entire thing. I think that's going to burn Pacers fans for a long time if they never get back. It's like, man, we had it. It was right there. If he doesn't get hurt, maybe we go on to win the thing, because the wheels kind of started coming off immediately after that. And again, if they don't make it back to the finals in the next 10 years, we'd say, okay, well, they had their window and they didn't take advantage of it.
Miles Turner goes to the Milwaukee Bucks, who essentially they're trying to reopen their window.
Yes.
But their window's kind of closing too.
Yeah,
they thought
also
they had it.
Dealing with a star with a major Achilles injury.
They had Giannis. Giannis wins the championship, and they're thinking, we're going to lock this guy down. We have the perfect star. You know I'm a big fan of Giannis. You don't want anybody else to be the star of your franchise. Not many people would love to live in Milwaukee, but Giannis is here for it.
Sure.
It's a perfect guy. We have the guy. Let's go get Dame Lillard. Let's get him some help. Dame Lillard gets hurt. They have to fire the coach. They hire Doc Rivers, which whoever's Doc agent is, very good.
It's almost like, I don't call it winning, losing the Doc lottery. Like, all right, who's he going to coach this year?
Doc Rivers is the coach. And all of a sudden, if you were a Bucks fan who didn't have a lot going on, maybe the Brewers haven't been good, maybe you're a Packers fan, you saw your window close, shut.
Sure.
Immediately after you won the championship, and you were thinking this thing was going to last for a long time, and it doesn't end up this way. I say all this to say this, Tyler. South Carolina football, we are in a window right now.
Feels that way.
With that talent that we have at quarterback. Some of the projections were projecting, Bill made mention as this, that Brett McMurphy has said that he projected us, he picked us to go to the Music City Bowl.
Liberty Bowl.
Yep.
So which means you're going to go about 6-6 or 7-5.
I said that would be a colossal disappointment and a waste of our window, because I feel that the window is open now when we have the best quarterback talent that we've maybe ever had in the program.
Yeah, you would hate to say in 2 years of him as a starter, you had 1 9-win season and then you went 7-5. And that's, again, he can still go out there and play great, but if your defense can't stop anyone, we saw it with Jalen Daniels a couple of years ago when the Heisman, phenomenal season. That offense was legitimately one of the, if not the best in college football, but the defense gave up 50 points a game, and you almost are kind of worried something like that could happen here. Offense is great, but defense can't stop anyone, and you're losing games in high-scoring shootouts.
Yeah, and so I always thinking about South Carolina football, obviously, but when we talk about this idea of that Indiana was so close with those talents, and now they're going to have to wander in the wilderness for a little while OKC won it, and now they are going to, and that's where I think South Carolina might be right now. With this generational talent at quarterback, a guy who's projected to be top 5, top 10, top 4 in the SEC, a guy who can really play, because they have to win this year.
Again, you've never been in this position of quarterback for, and I know Rattler brought a lot of hype because of what he had been at Oklahoma, but let's not forget, he did get benched for Caleb Williams. So even his stock had dipped a little bit coming into his first year at Carolina, and the first year was a little underwhelming, all things considered. So you've never gone into a season with the thought that your quarterback could legitimately be the best in college football and maybe hear his name called first overall in the draft next year. That's a reality right now. And again, he can still go play great, but if the help around him isn't there, you can still have a disappointing season.
Yeah, and in contrast to what we talked about with Arch Manning, Norris Sellers' hype is based on what he did on the field.
Yes.
It's not based, and again, I'm not trying to hold it against Arch, but his hype is mostly based on pedigree, training,
and
stats,
and what we think he can be.
What we think he will be. We've seen what Norris can be, and even the bright side of this is we know there's still a lot of upside that can still be explored here.
Sure.
We have not seen the best of Lenore Sellers.
He is not, up to this point, the most well-rounded quarterback yet. That was a big point for Mike Shule in the offseason to work on. You heard Sellers talk about it in his very brief answers the other day at the Manning Pass Academy, footwork, those kind of things, working on throws downfield. So there's room to improve, and we'll see how he does with that. But again, he's going to need everybody else to play well around him, or else it's just one really great player and a bunch of okay players.
Yeah, and so we position this. Obviously, we'll go deeper into talk of season, but my statement for this season is that the window is open right now.
Seems that way.
And this is a very important year, and Shane Beamer and crew must take advantage of it. When we come back, we have Josh Harris joining us from Darlington. I love when Josh Harris comes in because I let my two gearheads run wild. But I do have questions about this in-season tournament, where we start, where we go, how is it going over with NASCAR fans.
And cue the explosion sound effects.
Yes.
All right, cool. This is the early game.
Hardscrabble at Summit Parkway, an accident there. Also Methodist Park Road at Highway 1 and St. Peter's Church Road at Highway 76. The earlier tie-up on I-26 eastbound at exit 119 that has been cleared, so traffic flow, if it's still a little bit slow, it won't be for too much longer. They do have that out of the way. 88 with some afternoon and evening storms today, 92 tomorrow with some clouds, and your 4th of July looking fantastic. Sunny and 94. It's overcast, 76 currently on 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thor, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. We are joined now by our good friend, President of Darlington Raceway, Josh Harrison. Josh, I love when you come on this show and Tyler and Jen are in here because I just back away and I let the gearheads go crazy. So that's what I'm going to do, but I wanted to make sure I said hello to you first. So, Josh, how you doing and welcome into the show.
Preston, I appreciate it, man. Always good to hear from you. And, man, we're heading into the 4th of July weekend, so it's going to be a great weekend celebrating our nation's birthday, but also some racing in Chicago. I hear Jen's heading up that way, so looking forward to it.
Well, so we do have that. You touched on things. Obviously, the nation's birthday, greatest nation in the world. We love that. Josh, I've positioned earlier that 4th of July is the best eating holiday on the calendar. It is a little bit controversial. You don't have to follow me up that hill if you don't want to. But I do have a question as a novice here, and I think this is a good time to get into this with motorsports because y'all are doing the in-season tournament right now. It's the first year. I don't understand in-season tournaments in any other sport, so I really don't understand this one. Can you give me a very precise breakdown on what's happening here?
Yeah, basically, with 32 of the 40 drivers, up to 40 drivers in the field, were eligible. Now we're down to 16. It's essentially heads up, you're paired up against somebody. If you finish higher in that race against them, you advance.
And the sound effect that I played coming into the segment was explosions because of all of the brackets that were busted. There is not one perfect bracket, which means there was $1 million prize for contestants and then, for fans, and then $1 million prize for drivers. Well, the $1 million is out the window because nobody has a perfect bracket.
You mean literally zero?
Literally
no
zero.
perfect brackets left.
After the first race.
Wow.
Because if you look, if you were picking, Denny Hamlin was paired up against Ty Dillon. Well, Ty Dillon did better than Denny Hamlin in this race. So a lot of people, I'm sure, had Denny Hamlin, because Ty Dillon was ranked at 32. And that's how he was seated. So it's like, really? Against Denny Hamlin? Of course you're going to pick Denny Hamlin. So that alone probably took care of most brackets.
Yeah, it's like the 1 versus 16 in the NCAA tournament. You sometimes get it, but it's rare.
Gotcha. All right, so I'm going to back out the way. Appreciate you answering that question, Tyler.
Well, and those brackets were busted because of the wild race we had in Atlanta this past weekend. I got to go. I took my 11-year-old nephew to his first race, and Atlanta's my home track, but this is the first time I've got to experience it since they reconfigured it a couple years ago. And I was talking about with Jen the other day, I don't think I've seen a race, at least in a very long time, that was competitive from the word go. The green flag at the start to the checkered flag at the end. There's no lull. It was action every single lap. Passes for the lead, obviously the big wrecks as well, like 400 miles of nonstop action, which in today's world of NASCAR, you don't see all that often.
Yeah, Tyler, I was on the edge of my seat when me and my boys were watching it, and sometimes, we'll have the race on in the background and doing other things. But like you said, from the drop of the green flag, it was competitive, it was racy, guys were passing all throughout the field. You had a guy like Carson Hocevar started the back, drove all the way up to the front within the first 30 laps. The big one obviously took a lot of top competitors out near the front of the field, jumbled things up, but it didn't hurt the action on the track. And really those last probably 60 to 70 laps, man, you couldn't turn away with all the passing. And what was so cool is they didn't need to get 3 or 4 guys in a line to pass. you could get a run on a car and make those dart moves out of line. And I think what it showed is you did not want to be the car out front at the wrong time of the race, which ultimately ended up being Brad Keselowski. Elliott made the right pass, the right time, held him off, and got a hometown win, which I know was really popular. I'm sure it was cool to be there for that.
Absolutely. And we had heard Denny Hamlin talking about the fact that it actually helped the racing because half the field was pretty much cleared out. So you could really do what you needed to do, and people could come from the back, race to the front. You could make passes and all of that. So it was kind of interesting to get his perspective. He's like, we can actually do our jobs when only half the cars are there. I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective.
Yeah, Denny knows better than anybody, and I think that race was probably closer to what we saw in the late 90s, early 2000s at the Daytona and Talladega, drafting restrictor plate tracks, something we haven't seen at those tracks in a long time. And if we could bottle that up and take it to Daytona and Talladega, I think it'd be really neat. I know there's some other factors at play with just the size of those tracks, the length of the front straightaways and the back straightaways, and then the age of the surface already at Atlanta has made that a handling track as well. So it's a lot of fun to watch them try to keep it under control. That race is on my list to take my boys next summer. We almost went this week. We just couldn't pull it together. But I think that's one I want to go hit a baseball game and a race in the same weekend.
Sounds like a good road trip to me. Absolutely. So we're looking ahead now to the race in Chicago. I know there is a 3-year contract for this race, and so there's talk of whether this race will get extended. I know there's been some talk about even going to San Diego, but then also maybe staying in Chicago, but putting it at a different time of year. So we don't know the status of that, so we have to really enjoy the race this weekend. What are your thoughts looking ahead to the race?
Well, year 3, Jen, you and I were talking off air, and I had the chance to go up to the first year and see it. A lot of rain, unfortunately, but we got the race in. Shane Van Gisbergen comes onto the scene and wins. And then last year, a little bit shortened, but Alex Bowman takes the win. So first of all, I'm really hoping for some good weather. We can see what this street course does with the guys. And I think it's going to be a great weekend. We had John Hunter Nemechek here in town this week, and I was asking him, just the difference of staying in the hotel right there near the track versus having their motorhome. And he said other than probably being able to sleep better in his motorhome because it's kind of his home away from home, he really enjoys, and the drivers really enjoy just being able to kind of walk out of the hotel, walk right across the street, and they're at the track, and it's just a different environment, a race environment for them, which is nice to do sometimes. And then the fans are down there all throughout the city and the Grant Park down there. So looking forward to good weekend, hopefully 2 good races, and then we'll see what the future holds for Chicago.
Well, maybe the future will hold some semblance of victories for myself because
Preston, you need to start putting some things together here.
I'm getting to that point where things need much like the Braves, like you just said. This is getting to a point where things need to be happening. With that being said, I'm gonna go with my first pick. I'm not gonna outthink this again. I'm just gonna go with the fundamentals. Give me the road race guy. Give me SVG.
Good call. I'll take that out of my list. So that comes to me because Preston has 51 points. I have 53. Josh has 62. Bill has 68. And Reggie has 71. So sadly, Preston and I are the first picks in all of this. I think Elliott coming off a win, he can do well at a road course. I'm going to say Elliott goes back-to-back. He hadn't had a win in like 41 races or something. And I'm going to say that Elliott actually gets the back-to-back and wins in Chicago. So that would lead us to Mr. Josh. Who are you thinking is going to win this race?
Well, Jen, I think that's a good pick. I think Elliott's got some momentum. I looked at the first couple of years, and there's a guy that very rarely gets a mention on here that I think could potentially get his first career Cup Series win. I'm going to go with Ty Gibbs.
I wondered.
Am I picking for Bill?
Yeah, so do you want Danica or do you want,
yeah, Rusty Wallace. You know what? Alex Bowman, underrated road racer. I'll go with Alex Bowman for Bill.
Okay, Bowman for Bill. And that would leave Reggie with, actually, he wants Bell. So he wants Christopher Bell. So that's who Reggie has. So we're all set for Chicagoland.
All right, we are set. We'll see what comes up. Josh, we always appreciate you for joining us. Hopefully this means some points for me. Enjoy your 4th of July. Enjoy your family, man. Thank you for joining us.
Enjoy your 4th, too, and we'll talk next week.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
yes, sir.
sir.
Appreciated that. With that being said, the 4th of July is here, and that means the true American hero is returning to the stage.
You don't sound excited.
We will talk about a true icon has made his return. He's decided to return. This is the early game. Tyler, some of our oldest and greatest athletes have decided to join us for one more year. LeBron has opted into the LA Lakers on a 1-year deal. Aaron Rodgers has opted into a 1-year deal with the Steelers. But maybe the most dominant athlete, especially of the summer, has also opted in. Jen, can we hear from our guy really quickly here, please?
If this holds for Joey Chestnut, this park is shouting Joey. And Jeffrey Bezos, I'm only going to ask once. Bring Joey to the moon with you, man. He's earned it. Chestnut is a true American treasure.
Under 30 seconds remaining, 72 hot dogs and buns unofficially. He is eyeing his own record.
Look at that crowd.
That was Joey Chestnut setting what was the record in 2021 with 76 hot dogs and buns eaten at the I don't know what's the official title of this. I call it the hot dog eating contest.
It's the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest.
There we go. At the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest.
Which that should illustrate how dominant he is, because it's not about can somebody beat Joey Chestnut. It's can Joey Chestnut beat himself as in his prior records? Because like they give nobody else a chance. When Joey Chestnut's on the stage, outside of Matt Stoney in 2015, nobody's beating the guy.
What a time.
Yeah.
Matt Stoney can always have that and tell his kids, like, I did it. It happened. We probably didn't give that as much shine as it deserved at the time.
And Matt Stoney, who's made a lot of money competitive eating on YouTube now, hasn't even been in this competition the past couple of years.
Yeah,
there's been nobody in the stratosphere of Joey Chestnut.
So Joey Chestnut set the record in 2021 with 76 hot dogs and buns eaten. I got to make sure I say that. But here's where it gets sporty sport.
Yep.
On Netflix, against Kobayashi, he ate 83 hot dogs and buns, which people say is the new record. But my contention is it wasn't in front of
He's got to set the record
stage
in the Nathan's contest on Friday.
What do you think about that?
I think it's capable of doing it. And by the way, you know the effect Joey Chestnut has on this competition? Last year, they were down 1 million viewers from the year before when Joey was not competing because he had that deal with the Impossible Foods that they deemed as a rival and wouldn't let him compete. Yeah, I think they tried to work through that pretty quickly to get him back. Like, oh, our audience got cut in half because Joey's not competing?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't watch last year. And it's one of these things where you sort of, Jen, do you watch this? Do you have the stomach to watch this?
I do not. I do not. And I worked at a radio station where we actually put one on back in Lafayette, Indiana. Ugh.
Tyler, do you have the stomach to watch this?
Oh, I love this. This is one of my favorite things every single year. But I'll tell you, last year, and July 4th is also my wife's birthday, so we're doing other things. I DVR'd it and watched it later. I didn't feel the need to watch it in the moment because I didn't think I was going to see anything remarkable.
You didn't think anything electric was going to happen?
Somebody's going to win, but it's not Joey Chestnut.
So with him taking a year off, do you feel like Joey Chestnut is primed to set the record? And is the record actually the 76 or is it the 83?
It's the 76 because, again, I don't know what kind of hot dogs he was using at this other competition, so the weight of that and all that kind of stuff can factor in. I think 76 is still the record. I think you have a reference point that, hey, he might be able to get to 83. So I think the official record's 76, but you know that, hey, it's possible he could potentially get over 80, which I think will be kind of again, he's racing himself. Nobody's going to compete with him. It's can he beat his own record?
Now, the question is when I'm watching this, do they have, like a track and field meet, how they have like splits? Do they have he needs to be at this number by
They have
3 minutes, or like how do I gauge this? Because I need, when I'm watching the sports, I need to know if we're close.
Advanced analytics are everywhere. They have a dog and bun per minute count on the screen.
That's what I need
while you're watching.
That's what I need, because these types of things make the viewing even better, because like swimming in the Olympics was good,
sure,
but it didn't get great until you put that line there.
Exactly, to kind of know where the world record mark is.
Exactly, and so I need to know what is called the buns per minute.
Yes.
All right.
And they'll put like, hey, he needs to average this per the next 5 minutes if he wants to beat the record.
All right. So a great American hero is returning.
It's 10 minutes of your day. It doesn't take an hour, I promise.
If you have, that's funny because the broadcast is an hour.
The broadcast is an hour, but it's all about the 10 minutes.
It's sort of like the Kentucky Derby.
Exactly. It's all day for what? 2 minutes worth of racing.
You gotta see the athletes walk on stage. They get the introductions.
Yep.
You see all the different dudes. But when it comes down to it, it is 10 minutes worth of fun. And so yes, Joey Chestnut is making his return to the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. We'll be watching that. As I stated earlier, I will die on this hill. This is the thing that's going to take me to the top of the sports media complex. 4th of July. Best eating holiday on the American calendar.
Do you have a hot dog record for the 4th of July?
No, I don't. I wouldn't try and set one, but I would say you could set me if you was to set the over under at 4.5.
Okay, think you'd take that down?
But that would be over like the whole day.
Yes, not over 10 minutes. not in 10 minutes.
You like to enjoy them.
Here's what you really need to set: the over under on dogs minus adult beverage.
There you go.
If
now
it's
we're talking.
Equal, now we'll be equal. Appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all on Monday. Presser here for Cato's Power Equipment. Cato's Power Equipment has been powering the Midlands since 1983. That's over 40 years, helping everyone from weekend warriors to professional landscapers. And third-generation owner Ben Cato provides top-notch service, great deals, and the mom-and-pop values that you love. Ben is determined to raise the standard